So we can hear you, so I can hear you. Gosh, we have a lot of people here. Wow. Go ahead.
We can start if you're ready.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the planning commission meeting for Wednesday, November 1st, 2023. Roll call.
Chair Cindy Olson,
Here.
Chuck Howard,
Here.
Don Reimer,
Here.
Ursula Kuzlucki, here, Kent Slaymaker,
Here.
Lisa Manifold, here. Thank you.
Okay, a motion for approval of the minutes of June 14th, 2023. Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, yay? Yes.
Yay.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, anybody have a conflict of interest to declare? Okay, now we'll go to public comment, and this is a section we started new, and it's for non-agenda items. So if there's somebody in the audience that has something they want to bring to our attention, that's the non-agenda item, could do so at this point. Nobody? Gosh,
I'm
everybody's
on public comment, but it has to do with an agenda item.
then, well, wait, that's separate. Wait till we get to that. Yep. Okay, we'll move on to new business, and we're gonna open a public hearing at 6:01. Okay, bear with me, I have to read this whole thing. This matter is set for the public hearing before the City of Idaho Springs Planning Commission tonight. The city has received a final development plan application for the property known as 1501 through 1503 Colorado Boulevard. The final development plan application will follow the typical a two-step review process. First, the Planning Commission will conduct a hearing on the application. After the commission does this, we make a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council then holds its own hearing on the application and makes the final decision. This is a formal public hearing. We will require testimony to be given under oath. We will not follow any formal rules of evidence. If there is a question about the admissibility of evidence or testimony, I will make a ruling on that as chair. After I open the hearing, I will invite city staff to give a presentation. Then the applicant will be invited to present evidence and testimony. Then the members of the public will be invited to give evidence and testimony. City staff and the applicant may respond to public testimony. Finally, the applicant will be given the opportunity to have the last word on any matter raised during the public hearing. Throughout this process, commissioners may ask questions. After I close the public hearing, the commission will begin its deliberations and make our recommendation. We will do this by motion. A suggested motion is in the staff report and in our motions guidelines. If we cannot reach a decision tonight, we could continue the matter. Before I open the public meeting, are there any questions? You want a restated time on opening it?
You're good.
Okay. Okay, we'll start with inviting city staff to present.
Well, Chair Olson and members of the Planning Commission, we are here tonight to consider a proposal by Craig and Kurt Levy for approval of a final development plan to construct the Gem Motel, which is a 3-story mixed-use motel and cafe at 1503 Colorado Boulevard. This property is located on the southwest or southeast corner of Colorado Boulevard and 15th Avenue, and it's bounded to the south by Center Alley. It's zoned C1. According to Chapter 21 of the Municipal Code, this project must undergo this FDP process because it's a new commercial building. So that includes public hearings and decisions by both Planning Commission and City Council, as you just noted. As far as existing conditions go, there is currently a duplex on the lot, a single family home, which is an older home, one of the oldest ones in Idaho Springs. And then there's a multi-car garage on the facility. In 2022, the duplex was struck by a drunk driver, and it's been vacant since that time, just because it's not safe to occupy. This project will essentially be a 3-story mixed-use building. It'll have an Italianate facade, unpainted brick, and then they're going to paint the siding on the accessory structure, which is the historic structure, black. As far as conformance to land use regulations, this project meets all the required setbacks for the zoning, which is front 10 feet, side 5 feet, and back 18 feet. It's going to be 35 feet tall, which conforms to the standards in the ISMC. And it meets the 10% unobstructed open space requirement. One thing that we did have to discuss with the applicant is the parking situation. Planning Commission recently recommended and City Council approved a fee in lieu ordinance for projects like this that can't meet their parking requirements. The applicant originally tried to get a parking reduction factor on this property because there is a cafe and kind of gift shop use. But as we kind of analyzed the project, we realized that it's really part of the hotel operation. It's not a distinct retail operation. And so we weren't able to get that parking reduction factor. When you look at all of the parking required for the site, you end up with 10 spaces. They're able to provide 9 spaces. And so what we have done is discuss with them multiple options they could do. They could either provide the parking somewhere else, or they could use the fee in lieu ordinance to provide that space. They agreed to go the fee in lieu route, which would require them to pay $20,000 for that one space that they're needed. Staff feels like it was pretty reasonable. We looked at the criteria for consideration for a fee in lieu, which is basically, are there site-specific constraints here? And that is true. There's limited open space on this site. Does this protect any of the historical significance of the town? And the one older home that is on the kind of the southwest corner of the lot is one of the oldest homes in Idaho Springs. It is not currently designated as historic, but it probably could be. And by saving that home, we are saving some of the historic significance of the city in a pretty prominent location. So we feel that it meets that requirement. This site is very close to public resources for parking. It's only a 2-block walk to get to the parking lots over here behind downtown on the south side. It doesn't really fit within the land use characteristics of our city. It's really the only criteria that it doesn't meet for the fee in lieu criteria. And then the last one is public health, safety, and welfare. And we feel that the applicant meets this criteria because providing additional on-site parking would probably be dangerous with people backing into each other and things like that. So city staff does recommend that we approve that fee in lieu application. As far as the rest of my staff report, I did cover some of the parking and loading requirements that are in code. One thing that did come up is stormwater management on the site. Our public works would prefer that stormwater go towards Colorado Boulevard. That's where we have stormwater drains and things like that. We want to avoid it going onto Center Alley to the maximum extent possible because drainage on Center Alley currently is not what it needs to be to handle that additional water. So we are putting a condition of approval on this application that they work with Public Works to maintain stormwater drainage to Colorado Boulevard at the north. As far as building and site design are concerned, you can see the structure here. It looks to conform with the characteristics of buildings in the HD district, which is what code asks it to do in that area. The building we think is set back from the street enough to not cause an issue for parking or for traffic, and it will be safe for pedestrians to walk around that corner. It'll be probably a little bit of an improvement on that sidewalk there. Landscape design, we think that generally the plan conforms to ISMC requirements. Some of the plants that are on the plans are non-native, and we prefer them to be native. That's what it asks for in code. But in general terms, we think that the landscape requirements have been met. Referrals and public notice. We referred this project to city staff, like City Administrator Andy Marsh, the Chief of Police, Director of Public Works, JVA Engineering, Safeville, Clear Creek Fire Authority, and the City Attorney. The only comments that we had back was that we needed a little bit of information about their civil plan and landscape plan, looking at where street trees were and things like that. That was provided to the city back in April of 2023. Public notice for this project requires a community meeting, a notification mailing, a signposting, and that's all the requirements for it. The community meeting was held on December 19th, 2022. The notification mailing to property owners within 300 feet was sent on December 5th, 2022, and the sign was posted 14 days ago. I do want to notice that Heather Campbell is here tonight. She's the neighbor of the property. And she had initial conversations with Jared about this project following the community meeting. She had sent those to me, and in the transition, somehow we didn't quite get the packet of information. So you do have on the dais there her comments from that time. We do want to make sure you have time to read those comments as well, because they should have been in the packet. The only other thing I'd like to tell you is that we did recommend approval of this FDP with conditions. The motion actually has 2 approvals in it, because what we'd like to do is have you consider the final development plan separately from the fee and lieu ordinance. So we just want to make sure we approve both of those individually. The fee and lieu ordinance is required for this project to move forward. So if we need to work on the fee and lieu ordinance or something like that to make sure it conforms the application, that would be a condition of approval for the ultimate final development plan. That's my initial comments. I do have the building and site documents here if you have questions about them. And so we can walk through those and then answer any further questions that you may have.
Okay, next we'll invite the applicant. Who's the applicant? And come up to the front. And state your name and address.
Can I have your full name and address? please?
My name's Zeke Freeman. I'm with Root Architecture, I'm the architect for the project. I live at 23416 Navajo Road in Indian Hills, Colorado.
And my name's Craig Levy. I am the applicant. I live in Indian Hills also.
Can you state your address, please?
22809 Nampeo Road,
Can you spell Nampeo for me?
Nampeo.
Also in Indian Hills, you say?
Correct.
Can you both raise your right hand for me? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Want to separate this into two?
So I'll just give a couple comments architecturally. We've worked with the city for the past year to really come up with a project that is cohesive with the city, the design. We've really tried to create a space that is going to be an opportunity for people to come and stay and enjoy Idaho Springs. It'll have kind of a unique feel as a boutique hotel with the opportunity to be able to stay and have a little cafe on the base level. This will serve the community well as well. We worked to try to give enough parking on the project. Initially, we thought we had all the parking required, and we worked with the city to come up with a solution based on the current design to meet their new fee and lieu standards. So I think we've gotten a good solution in place for that. The project will have 9 residential units. It sets back on the 3rd floor. We've made sure to put some screening on the 3rd floor for privacy. The basement level is finished out for mechanical utility use. First level has half kind of lobby, a welcoming area, coffee shop area, and then 2 units. And then the other 6 units are on the units up above. And I'm here to answer any questions. So thanks for working with us. We really hope this will be a great project for Craig. He is a joy to work with. I think you guys will really, as an owner operator, he's someone that I've really you guys will get to know as a neighbor. He's a really good person, and I think he'll do a great job running this. And we're just glad to be part of the team.
I just have a few things to add. We really wanted this design to fit in with the historic district in Idaho Springs. We want the people that come to visit our little boutique hotel to be able to enjoy and walk up and down the streets of Idaho Springs and just have the feel of this historic city. I've been driving through this town my entire life. I was raised up in Breckenridge, and we used to come to Idaho Springs constantly on our way down to Denver. It's always been an important place in my life, and now that I own property here that was destroyed, I want to improve the property to be what I think it can be that benefits the city. That's really all I have at the moment.
Do you want to kind of go over like the lay of on the block where they turn in for the parking
Sure.
and
So
stuff like
parking
that
is-
for others that might be interested that aren't seeing the drawings?
Sure, so I guess if we're looking at the site plan here, so Colorado is on the top of the page. You come in and you access the project through the alley. And then there's pull-in parking directly off the alley, so 4 spots plus a handicap spot. And then there's an additional, 5 spots, and then there's an additional 4 spots that you pull in and turn into. Between the parking and the building is on the right-hand side, we have snow storage, trash, little outdoor courtyard. We're gonna do some gabion walls, which are kind of rock, cool looking pieces that'll give a little bit of privacy and protection between that little courtyard space and the parking. There's a fence line that goes up the entire side of the property and provides screening as well from any lights pulling into the adjacent property. There is landscaping, kind of rock gravel on both sides of the building. You can see on the bottom left-hand side is the existing single family. We've worked really hard to preserve that as part of this project. So that remains. And then the duplex that was in the place of the new hotel obviously is coming down and is getting replaced with the new boutique hotel. So you'll walk in either from the, if you're coming in as a guest, you park in the back, you walk into the main entry lobby space. There is a check-in and some sitting area. That check-in will double as a little coffee spot. And then there is 2 handicap units on the ground level, and then stairwell access up to the upper units.
Steve, do you want to just briefly talk about your traffic analysis that was performed? They have it in their packet, I just mentioned.
I mean, I guess we did do a traffic analysis, and you know, I think the traffic was shown to be adequate for the parking that we're providing, not providing, you know, kind of harmful detriment to the area.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for him? No. Okay, now, thank you. We'll invite for public comment, and did they had to sign up for public comment?
Right.
Yeah.
Typically, and then if anybody does want to give public comment, is it on the list, just let us know so we can get you up here.
And I.
So do you want me to call that?
Yes, I didn't see what it says. But
Okay, Heather Campbell. And then state your address.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Campbell, P.O. Box 301521, Colorado Boulevard, Idaho Springs, Colorado, 804.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I think it was really awesome that the architect wants us to get to know our neighbor. I live right next door to this property, and I think I know my neighbor pretty well at this point. What I can show you is just described in pictures. But I'm gonna get the emotional part out for just a second, then we're gonna move into the analytics of the property. I do feel like you may not have had the time to look at my concerns. 2 days after the first meeting, I presented them from my emails to Jared, who was in charge of the planning commission at that time. We had a discussion. He was going to send them on to the board. Apparently that didn't happen. On May 5th, I sent it to Jonathan saying, hey, when's the next planning commission meeting? I haven't heard a thing. I live right next door. Have a serious vested interest in the property. Did the board get my concerns. I came in tonight, apparently you didn't get my email, and now you're just getting my concerns for the first time. So I feel like please take the time to read that and understand what our concerns are for the property. I'm just gonna quickly read this and then we'll go to show and tell. My husband and I, Dave Harvey, he couldn't be here tonight. I grew up in Idaho Springs. We've owned that property for almost 20 years. When we moved there, it was the most magnificent property in the entire town. Phenomenal, beautiful. We were very happy to live there. That's not the case now. As you can imagine, we're very concerned that this proposed 3-story hotel in our little residential neighborhood and what the consequences will be to our home, our privacy, our sanctuary, our property value, and our retirement. We're very close to that. We've run the gamut of emotions from tears to anger to complete astonishment that this could even happen in our residential neighborhood. We think it's important that you know exactly what kind of neighbors the applicants are, and they've been crystal clear about it for almost close to 2 years since the truck unfortunately crashed into the building. This was very unfortunate, but as most good neighbors do, they do their due diligence to create at least some measure of cleanup.
Heather, can I just interrupt for
Yeah.
1 second? Comment is to 3 minutes.
Yes.
But,
I'm almost done.
okay, no,
I'll show you the
just so
quick
you didn't, if you wanted
Because
to
I want
get
to get
to.
into the analytical side.
Okay.
Yeah, let's look at the pictures really quick. So this is my house. I don't know best to show you. This is my little blue house. Everybody knows it. Who's in Oz? Keep it beautiful. Let's see. There's so many to choose from, honestly. But we can start. Let's see. The 4-foot weeds, when the fire authority was called on the property, because this is how our neighbors keep the property. They don't do anything until the police are called, and this was a fire danger, right before 4th of July. Broken windows, this still exists today on my fence line. These are your potential neighbors. And this is how they treat their property. This is my house, this is my neighborhood. I'm very proud to be a homeowner and I take care of my property. That was the emotional side. Let's go to the analytical. The property that is proposed for the site has been residential, even though it's C1, for over 60 years, probably closer to 80. There are 3 separate residents on the property, and they've been home to many locals, and I can remember at one point up to 9 people who lived there at a time and worked in our downtown area. Regardless of the zoning, the property has always been residential homes for our residents. We do not need another boutique hotel in the downtown area. We have a freshly remodeled, beautiful hotel that's about to open 1/2 block away. We also have numerous Airbnbs very close. We do not have enough local housing in our community, and we are turning the hotels that we do have into housing for our local workforce. Let's not choose tourism dollars at the expense of our residential housing stock. Housing is the #1 concern in Idaho Springs and in Clear Creek County. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have the most to lose.
Is there anybody else that would like to sign up before I close for public comment? Okay, does the applicant have anything they would like to add?
I do. Jump up here, and I understand I'm still under oath,
You are.
so my testimony is regarding a couple of things. First, the highest and best use of this property is definitely not as it was. There's also a city ordinance in place that I was made aware of, that after a 6-month period, the building could not be rebuilt and must come down. And I must improve it to its highest and best use as a owner of multiple properties. I'm an investor, and, you know, highest and best use is not another duplex. This is better for the city and will be good for Idaho Springs. Since I was the disrepair that the building is in due to the drunk driver and the unfortunate that incident was, we were all lucky that no one perished in that incident. It was a horrible thing. We were in shock. We were victims as well as the folks that resided there. It was terrible. But since I'm not allowed to repair it due to the city ordinance, and investing in this building that needs to come down, sure, we let some of the grass grow. I wasn't on this project every day because I have other projects going, but we believe we're putting together something that's going to benefit the city in the long run, in many aspects, just the tax revenues and the things that we're willing to do to improve the land, the sidewalks, and everything else that needs to be done. We feel we're offering something nice to the city, so I'd like you to take that into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing on the final development application, and now the commissioners, I'll close it at 6:27 p.m. And questions from commissioners? Does somebody want to start, or? Okay, my first one was the parking, which from looking at how this was figured out and with the in lieu, is interesting that we get to use the in lieu. It fits the application and the idea of what the in lieu was the city move forward in establishing, and this is our first in lieu that we're seeing. So we will have to take that into consideration. One of the other things I had was the landscaping, which is more in what's natural to the area. I think that one could be compromised on. Where's the builder, the architect there? Okay. With more conforming plants that are native to the area.
Would be liable with that.
Other questions? Does somebody else have any questions? Uchi, you.
A few were answered with the presentation. I do have a couple. On the analysis of the historic significance, it says that it might be designated at least locally or even nationally in the future. I am curious if the property owner is planning on doing that. Since this is a assumption here, because we're considering the historic significance as something that is applies to it, so I'm wondering if they're actually gonna follow through with that or not.
I can start answering that.
Mhm.
That building was identified.
Actually-
Oh,
If we're still having like back and forth with staff or the applicant, the public hearing needs to be reopened.
Okay.
Once it's closed, that's just for deliberations, like discussions
Yeah.
amongst yourselves and then take a motion and vote.
Mhm.
So the chair can do that and you guys will have to discuss, but
Yeah, I guess I would, unless you have spoken directly with them and they have told you that, I guess, or even with him.
yeah, like
Okay, then I would like,
now is just for you guys. to
Right,
talk
it's discussion
amongst the group.
amongst us
okay,
on,
so I would like to know about that. And we, doesn't need to be answered right now. I can go through with the other questions and then we can decide.
well, what he's saying is any other questions that go with staff and stuff, it still has to be during the public hearing.
I know.
Otherwise, now we're, the hearing's closed and it's discussion amongst us on making the decision.
I know,
So do you want me to open it back up?
that's kind of what I was saying, is like, how about I go through the other questions that I have, to share with you guys,
Okay.
and then we can make a decision if you want to open it or not.
Is that fine?
I would
I just-
like,
Just as long as
Yep.
we're understanding that it's just you guys.
Okay,
so that was one of the things that I was curious about.
I guess my thought on that, I don't know why that would make a difference. on the historical part of it.
So we don't open it and close it, I guess, I was thinking. So others have more questions and we can decide to open it.
No, we can discuss it, but go ahead with your other question.
Sorry, I have a lot of notes right here. About the safety issue that got answered. I was wondering why would help, it says here that, without compromising the safety, the knowledge of public health and safety and welfare, I guess that was answered because of the adding more parking could be complicated in the area. And assuming that it is very important for us to want to keep the house that is historic. I mean, I guess that's a thing. I am also curious about like, parking for off-street loading. On some of the documents is mentioned like it's a restaurant, but apparently it's more like as a coffee shop, so I was just wondering how big of a need that off-street, sorry, not off-street, what am I saying?
I think Jonathan did address that in here. He did
Yeah.
address it. I didn't.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it because I did read restaurant somewhere, so I just wanted to make sure the off-street loading space is not absolutely necessary, and because that's another of the. Oh, that's a different thing. Yeah, just listen.
Jonathan, where was that? I know you.
It's after the parking fee.
Page.
Page 5. I wish we would have gotten these comments from the neighbor sooner, absolutely. There's a couple of the privacy, noise control, I think are definitely something to consider. The hot tub on the east side of the property, it will be like pretty much be right next to the property, so I wonder if there's some need or request for some screening, something we would wanna request.
I do believe they addressed the privacy terms.
Yeah, but I don't see anything on the design that shows that there's any screening on the hot tub area on the top, on the 3rd floor. And I was looking at the comments and it says from the neighbor. the courtyard is next to really close to their house, and they're worried about the noise control, so I was wondering too if the architect has done anything to address that issue, if they were aware of that or not, if anything was done, because it does, I mean, it's not exactly right next to it, but it's, there's like apparently at least 20 feet in between the courtyard and their property line. So those are my comments.
Hey, any other discussion?
I was curious about the noise and privacy as well, but we probably have to reopen, as you were saying.
Oh, I would think city ordinances address that,
I would imagine as long as it
yeah.
applies.
I
Here's the city
would
ordinance and
definitely
everything.
think city ordinances do apply.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure it does.
yeah. It better.
Well, it seems like the big question is housing versus a commercial hotel. Now, we all know that, well, you can't say affordable anymore because nothing's affordable, but at least expensive rooms would not be affordable to anybody, say, coming into town and looking for a place to live. They probably couldn't afford to stay there. And on the other hand, will it benefit the economy? It will be a good tax base, you know, and with the cafes and so on and so forth. Is that good for the city too? So it's kind of a decision between the two.
I think it's also fair to say that with this project, we're not losing any housing because it's not currently housing. It's not currently in use.
Well, and I think you have to consider it is, the zoning on it is C2. So it is fitting the
Commercial, yeah.
appropriateness as far as the zoning, which is difficult when you have a resident that's right next to it. So it does allow the property owner to do something like this or build residential. It's kind of up to the property owner at that point and what they're wanting to invest in. I don't think it's for us to say what he has to do with it. What we have to look at is his development plan. Is it meeting the requirements of the city, the codes of the city? And that's what we're approving. I would like us to look at the 5 items, and if we agree that those conditions have been met, which the first one is the parking in lieu. And I think we would all agree that it's covering the intention of the ordinance that was put forth by the city for the parking in lieu. Does everyone agree with that one?
Mhm.
Yes.
The historic significance. So it's not currently designated as historic, but if the building was to have to come down, how could it ever be historic? Can I ask that question, Nick? It's just
It's
a
a-
factual wondering,
Yeah, no, it's a question for the applicant.
okay,
Okay,
But like,
we can't, yeah, okay. Okay, so I think that's kind of a new point of this. Proximity to public resources, they've shown that it is,
But back to the historic for just a second, I'd just like to throw out that anything could potentially eventually be
be historic. I agree.
I mean,
No,
if
it
it's not currently.
No.
If it's not currently, then it's not current, it seems.
That's what okay. So the proximity to public resources meets that criteria, the land use characteristics. I think from what they've proposed,
That does not apply. Number 4 does not.
And then the final is the public health and safety. So do we have any comments on those meeting the 5 points of criteria?
As far as the parking, the fee in lieu of parking. It seems to make perfect sense. It's exactly what we were gonna discuss, the exact situation we were discussing.
Yep.
For fee in lieu.
And the historic significance is because we, as a planning commission, we would like to make sure that that house stays in place, right? We are the ones making the decision. Because they're willing to do that and we are open for them to designate it as a historic building. If not, if we think that parking is more important, could we say, no, you should redesign it so you can fit all the parking that you need? Or no?
I see now, I was misunderstanding. I thought we were talking about the duplex itself, not the separate single
The
home.
separate single, yeah,
Yeah,
But the separate single home, no, I understand. That's
Yeah.
definitely historically.
right, yeah. And it kind of goes with the criteria of the in lieu.
Right, I don't think,
Instead of tearing the building down, they can compromise and do the in lieu.
I'm always for fewer parking spots, especially for a historical building.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, it sounds like we need to make a motion. And we need to do 2 motions.
we could do that one first and then discuss the
Motion.
rest.
Do which one?
There's a motion in the packet
Right.
that covers the fee in lieu
Okay,
and the
right.
application all in one.
So we'll make, so I'm also recommend approval of the associated fee in lieu application for the 1503 Colorado Boulevard Gem Hotel.
Conditions, right?
That will be just for the fee in lieu.
No, I think you can, if you guys want to approve
Can we just,
the fee in lieu and the
And
development plan.
together.
okay, can we do it separately though? Because we could approve one first and then we can,
Well,
And
if we
we
want,
have to
if
give
we
them
want to do
together.
both, then we should talk about the other one. first.
yeah,
We
that's
only
why,
talked about the
that's,
parking
I was
so
gonna
far.
go the first one first, but I,
If you wanted to
If you're more
approve the
comfortable.
fee in lieu application and recommend denial of the FGP application and not recommend approval as in the suggested motion, then yes, we could workshop it to.
I think she's wanting to separate them out in case there's a yes or no
because we
vote.
still have to have a conversation about the
Individually.
other part. Yeah, but I can just,
Well, let's talk about the actual,
erase what I just said.
Just,
We can just
you
continue.
just
and-
withdraw your motion.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion. For now, we can continue the conversation.
Okay, so you prefer them to stay together?
I don't prefer anything. If you guys want to recommend denial of the FGP and approve the fee in lieu application, then you can certainly do that, and the motion as written would not work for those purposes.
let's talk about the.
We can
Yeah,
also
let's talk about the other stuff. I already withdrew it,
On that?
so.
On which the,
On the, just the note, it sounds like we talked about the fee in lieu, let's talk about the whole plan,
okay,
assuming fee in lieu went forward.
So, it would be nice to see housing in that property, for sure. That's a needed thing in our community.
Agreed, I worry that, I mean, I don't know how much standing we have to tell people that they can't build a legal thing that's legally allowed to be built on their own property, regardless of our personal feelings. It's my
Yeah.
thought, unfortunately.
And the study also said that it showed, and I don't remember the name of the study, so my apologies, but they found that we also were in need of hotel rooms, right? But I
That's
mean,
true.
it is true that we will be another hotel room with have a lot from there. But yeah, I mean, if we can just tell them what we prefer for them to build, we just have to decide if this is goes, if it follows the rules, the thing, and if not, it doesn't, but.
I don't think it's up to us to tell the property owner what to do.
Someone
You know,
knows
they've put this plan together, they've taken all the appropriate steps, they've submitted everything, they've met the criteria of the city, they've, you know, I think what we're looking at, are we approving the development plan based on what's available for them to do? It's not our personal opinions on whether we choose that they put housing there or a boutique motel. I think that's the way we have to look at it.
On page 7, they the analysis mentions that the landscape materials section, the one of the trees they're planning on planting, it's not native to Colorado. It's also, on my quick search, it appeared to be an invasive species, so I would like to request that they make sure that none of the plants that they plant are invasive species.
You can put that in the motion. If you recall, I asked him the question and they did agree to going with native plants. But if you want to put it in as a condition, you can, to make sure it gets done that way. I would hope as a developer, they're agreeing to it by word. Great, you can put it in as a condition, Nick?
We put it in once.
Yeah, and you can, theoretically, you can put any conditions in that you want.
Okay, any other discussion? I'm still confused. It sounds like what they'd like to do is, yes, we're gonna improve the in lieu for parking, but also want to separate it out in improving the development plan, or does it have to be together? I mean, if you approve the in lieu and they don't approve the other, it kind of makes it void.
Yeah.
But that way, my sense is if somebody wants to have a negative vote on it, then they have the opportunity to do it instead of getting rid of the whole thing.
I see what you're saying. Yes,
Okay,
I see what you're saying. So, essentially, you just want to cover for the possibility that the fee in lieu is approved, but maybe the application isn't approved.
is it better that one goes forward before the other? I would say let's do the development plan.
I think you can do, I think the motion can be the same, the same two things, and then you vote on the motion. And if it's if the motion is denied, then you can redo it.
Cindy, does that make sense what you said?
Yes.
Go for it. Like, if we could do it all together and if there's a problem.
Yeah.
we can-
Because if the
we can
motion
discuss
goes
more.
through and 3 or no, then you come back and you say, okay, well.
Yep.
We can do it piece by piece then.
I'm just seeing if they're clear on.
I think we
I
have.
do like the native plants
Okay, go for it.
modification. then.
Okay. We have a motion.
I just wanted to, as far as the landscaping goes, could better screening be combined with the landscaping for a neighboring property?
They do have the screening there.
Yeah, now, is it a fence or a wall, brick wall, sand wall, or?
Yep. No, it's in the plan.
Oh, okay.
There's one of the plans, they show you the kind of fence that they have on that side.
It's on page 5.
They do have like a 5 feet wall
Well,
in between the courtyard and the 20 feet before the property line
okay, so
on the back of the property.
Jonathan, what page was that on?
Pop it on the
Oh,
screen.
here it is. It's on 10.
okay, yeah, and we're gonna add the
It's in there.
conditional parts to
Natural.
that, okay.
Native
I
plants.
can add it on the
natural.
Based on the findings made on the record of this matter, I move to recommend approval of the associated fee in lieu application and approval with conditions of the final development plan for the Gym Motel at 1503 Colorado Boulevard. The conditions being as follows. Prior to the issuance of any permit related to this plan, the following shall occur. The applicant shall work with the Department of Public Works to ensure that stormwater drainage on the site is sufficient and directed towards Colorado Boulevard.
In the native plants. Do you want that in the motion?
And the plantings should be of native woods.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I would like to add a condition to work with the neighbors to improve the privacy screening on the 3rd floor.
Okay, do you want to amend your motion to include that?
All right, I will amend our motion to include screening on the 3rd floor on the east side of the building.
Your second to amend that?
Oh, second to the amended.
Okay, more discussion. Okay, roll call.
Chair Cindy Olsen,
Yes.
Chuck Howard,
Yes.
Don Reimer,
Yes.
Ursula Kruswig, Kent Slaymaker,
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Congratulations. And I'm sorry. Yeah.
This will be heard again at city council,
Yes.
and we'll make sure that all that information is in that packet as well.
When is the city council meeting for it?
It's on the 13th.
15th of November?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully the next one goes better. Okay, okay, now we'll go into our second public hearing. The matter is set for a public hearing before the city of, or the final application development for 320 Colorado Boulevard, Colorado Highway 103. The matter is set for the public hearing before the City of Idaho Springs Planning Commission tonight. The city has received a final development plan application for the property known as 320 Colorado Highway 103, the CCSD Transportation Maintenance Facility. For this application, the Planning Commission will conduct a hearing and vote to either approve or disapprove the application. This is a formal public hearing. We will require testimony to be given under oath. We will not follow any formal rules of evidence. If there is a question about the admissibility of evidence or testimony, I'll make a ruling on that as the chair. After I open the meeting, I will invite city staff to give a presentation. Then the applicant will be invited to present evidence and testimony. Then members of the public will be invited to give evidence and testimony. Evidence and testimony. City staff and the applicant may respond to public testimony. Finally, the applicant will be given the opportunity to have the last word on any matter raised during the public hearing. Throughout this process, commissioners may ask questions. After I close the public hearing, the commission will begin its deliberation and make our decision. We will do this by motion. The suggested motion is in the staff report and in our motions guidelines. If we cannot reach a decision tonight, we could also continue the matter. Before I open the public hearing, any questions about the process? So before we close it, questions, we can do that before we close it this time.
Any questions
Okay.
to staff or anyone else?
Yep. Okay, now I open the public hearing for the FDP application for 320 Colorado Highway 103, the CCSD Transportation Maintenance Facility at 6:55 PM. Okay, we'll start with city staff.
Normally, John will obviously be taking the reins on this, but I just want to give a little background. As you may or may not know, there's been a history with this project, and it has been subject to some litigation between the school district and the city. As part of that litigation, this hearing is part of a settlement of the litigation to dismiss the lawsuit and keep things moving forward. As you may notice, this is the only hearing on the matter. Generally, like with the FDP hearing that we just had, you were just recommending approval, and there's a subsequent hearing in front of the city council. As part of the bargaining / settlement talks here, the city conceded to have this hearing be the lone hearing on the matter. So your decision here will be the final decision as far as public hearings on the application go. The city council will be getting an update at its next meeting of what occurred, but will not be having a formal public hearing on the merits of the application. This is, I believe, mentioned in John's staff report, but as a school district, there's certain privileges that it carries, and that is that the selection of the site and the methods of construction are totally outside of the city's control. So anything that has to do with where the transportation maintenance facility is located and how that site was chosen, and anything that has to do with, let's say, building codes, fire codes, any sort of adopted codes, those concerns are also mostly irrelevant for your decision tonight. And I think that does it for my spiel, so I'll hand it off to John.
Members of the Planning Commission, you have two staff reports in your packet. One was written by Jared last September, and one was written by me dated today. The staff report by Jared is your general review process that we go through for these projects when they happen. And you'll see there that he reviewed all of the current zoning, the development acreage, the comprehensive plan, fit with that, all that kind of land use regulation stuff. In general, this project is for a final development plan for a transportation maintenance facility presented by the Clear Creek School District. It's located at 320 Colorado 103. The zoning is C1. There's approximately 5.72 acres of land there, but it's a significantly smaller buildable area just due to the terrain there. My staff report is focused on the conditions that Jared had placed in his staff report. And I think I'm going to cover that in the beginning here. And if you have further questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Jared's staff report had 8 conditions for approval in it. And we have been working pretty extensively with the school district to address all of these issues. The first condition was that the petitioner provide a revised plat indicating the property acquired from CDOT, resulting in compliance with the front yard setback. There was also originally question about a garbage enclosure that was required to be 1.5 times the front yard setback. We have worked with the applicant. They've provided us with a quitclaim deed from CDOT that makes this a non-issue. So there's no issue with that front setback anymore. They've also, one of the things that came up as we did this is that we started looking at the trash enclosure, and the city has an ordinance that says that they need to be bear-proof or they need to be in a resistant container. The applicant has said that they will follow that that ordinance, and that email confirming that is in your packet. The other thing that I just wanted to note here is that city code requires any mainline water extension, which is required for this project to get water to the new transportation maintenance facility. That either needs to be in city right of way, county right of way, or on a permanent easement. The applicant has agreed to work with the city to provide that easement across the school district property so that we can maintain that line in the future. The second condition of the staff report from Jared was that a minor landscape plan be submitted that addresses the spirit of the landscape provisions found within section 21-231, focusing on drought tolerant materials and practice. The school district has provided the city with an erosion control plan that generally meets the intentions of this section of code 231. They've also committed to using only only native plants in the landscape. This is a working facility, and the landscape is going to be pretty minimal for this portion of the project. As you know, the school building is going to be used for the elementary school, and there will be more landscaping on that side, kind of the public facing areas. And the city feels that in general, this complies with the regulations in the landscape plan, as long as it's native plantings and we're not potentially damaging the environment with something invasive or something like that. So I think it generally conforms to the intent of that code. The third condition was that a photometric plan be submitted to ensure that neighboring residential properties are not adversely affected. They have submitted a photometric plan. All neighboring properties are nearly 200 feet from the site and significantly lower in elevation from this property. It doesn't look like from the photometric plan that there will be much impact on neighboring properties. We also, in our code, we don't have a dark sky ordinance or anything like that to comply to. So it's mostly just about the impact on the residential properties. Fourth condition, parking stalls should comply with the minimum depth of 18 feet required by code. All the parking and bus stalls meet these standards. Obviously, the bus stalls are longer to accommodate them. The fifth condition was that the building design be amended to include additional architectural delineations on the north side, parapet variations on the east side, and it should demonstrate that rooftop mechanical units are not visible from Colorado 103 or neighboring residences. The building design is it's a prefabricated metal building. When you look at the building, there's nothing on the roof. There may be some blower stacks and there's some skylights, but the mechanical systems are mostly on the wall. We think that there will be nothing visible on the rooftop. We also think that based on the kind of building that this is, it may be unreasonable to expect there to be additional architectural delineations here. And where the building is placed on the site, it's going to be difficult to see from the highway anyway. So in general, I think that it meets the intent of code. There is a fuel structure on the site. It's an above ground diesel tank, and it's a small structure, so it's just for fueling buses essentially. Idaho Springs Municipal Code currently does not allow their use anywhere in the city. But in discussion with our legal team and our administration team, it's kind of an outdated ordinance. We really don't want small tanks buried in the ground where we can't observe them and we can't make sure they're not leaking. And so council had a conversation about this about 2 weeks ago. So they read a first reading of an ordinance that repeals this requirement that they be undergrounded. They will be required to meet all state and fire standards for the tank. So it will be protected and in a containment system, but it will be able to be monitored. So as long as the second reading of that ordinance passes, we don't have an issue with that fuel structure. And it will be permitted through the building process and by the fire authority and all of that. Based on the information that we have from the school district and what we've been working on, they have, as Council Klein stated, specific construction rights related to this project, where they can put the building and how they build it. And this FDP process is really focused on the regulations that we have in Chapter 21, over which the city has some control, which typically deal with surrounding area impacts. The analysis in my staff report addresses these matters that are within the city's jurisdiction, and looking at, again, those conditions in Jared's staff report. It appears that this final development plan is generally in compliance with our regulations within the city's jurisdiction that are in Chapter 21. Based on that, I have provided a motion to approve this final development plan without conditions. In your staff report, you do have a couple of attachments for me. Again, that staff report from Jared Chipman that kind of details all of the general regulations for the site. You have the current site plan documents that have been provided by the school district. One note I do want to explain, it does not include that site plan, the school building itself. For all intents and purposes, though, this is on one platted property. There's two different projects. So the school building is handled separately than the TMF facility. The school building does not require an FTP process. All it will require is the submission and approval of a parking plan. I have given you guys the quitclaim deed between the applicant and CDOT and confirmation about the use of those native plantings in the bear-proof trash dumpster.
I can ask a question.
Well, I would say, I think you should probably have the applicant.
Okay.
Present and then,
There's just a couple questions for Eric. Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes, and Jessica Blandford, the architect, is online to do a presentation. So Jessica, you can, if you want to share your screen there.
yeah, I think it's just probably easiest in case the applicant answers the question.
Sure.
And we'll have to swear you guys in still.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jessica Blandford. Do you want my home or work?
How do you spell your last name?
Blandford, BLANFORD,
And home.
5426 West 100th Place, Westminster, Colorado.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
So a little bit about the project. It's just over 4,500 square feet. This is kind of an image, like they said, it's pre-engineered metal building and what it looks like. And it's going to be used by the district. Sure, it's going to be used by the district for bus maintenance and facility maintenance and things throughout the district. There are a couple offices in there for district staff and those providing the maintenance at the facility. So we're using the same entry off of 103 in terms of access for the site, but it will be upgraded and permitted through CDOT. And then up as you come up from the entry to the top of the site, there's parking at the top for buses and district vehicles. And then just elevations of what the building will look like. As they mentioned before, you can see the skylights and some of the small items that will be on the roof, as well as the colors and metal panel that will be on the building. That's my presentation. Do you have any questions? I guess it sounds loud.
This is probably public comment and questions.
I got one question. Security for the above ground fuel tank. With what goes on in the world today, is there any concern about somebody vandalizing the fuel tank, shooting a gun through it, blowing it up? I mean, you gotta think about all this stuff and what goes on today. So just considering, is there security for that fuel structure, as it's called?
So there's fencing around the site to, they also have issues with things, catalytic converters being stolen off of buses and things like that as well.
And how about if something leaks, is there a containment structure around it?
Yes, so there's an internal containment. The fuel tank has to be permitted through our state regulations process for all of the containment requirements that the state has. And to access getting the fuel, it is on a card reader system. You can't just break through your friends, pull up and access that. So hopefully that addresses your concern.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about, well, what I'm concerned about. The whole world is changing. You never know what people are gonna do. So anyway, that's all.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to public comment. Did we have anybody sign up for public comment?
Nobody signed up,
Okay.
but there might still be comment.
I don't know if I should sign up or be an applicant at this point.
You're not.
You're welcome to go back up as an applicant.
Sure.
Name and address for the record, please.
Mike Gass, school superintendent, 345 8th Street in Idaho Springs.
How's the last name?
Gas, GASS, like you put in a fuel tank, with 2 S's.
above ground field.
I tend to be above ground. Thank you.
Can you raise your right hand, please?
Yes, ma'am,
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Want to speak specifically to your security question, because I share that as a superintendent of schools. Security is my number one issue and risk for kids, along with fuel tanks and school buses and things like that. So I envision us having, along with card readers, things like that, the security that we would have typically around any school facility with cameras, access point cards, swipe in, swipe out type stuff. So your point is well pointed at our facilities, regardless whether it's a fuel tank or a student. So number one concern of mine as well. So I just want to reiterate what our architect had shared as well.
Thank you. Okay, any questions? I had some and then I forgot what they were. So should one of the conditions be on the tank that it comes after the approval of the second reading of the ordinance with city council? Just in case there is a glitch.
Doesn't sound needed.
Yeah,
You don't think it's necessary? Okay,
I don't.
Okay.
I think like, not like from a decision-making standpoint, but
no,
like
just
like
as
a
it is a
mechanical-
condition that, yeah,
I don't think so.
okay. Okay. Questions before I close it, so we can get answers before we close it? No?
Believe it or not.
I was making sure the conditions have all met on my notes, yep. The structures. Okay, anybody, any questions to add? Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing at 7:11 p.m. And I'll ask for a motion.
Discussion amongst us.
You do it after the motion.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I will, based on findings in this matter, I'm going to approve the final development plan for the transportation maintenance facility at 320 Colorado 103.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
No,
Do you have
I-
discussion?
no, I-
No, oh, okay, I thought you were gonna have something. Okay, roll call,
Chair Cindy Olson,
yes.
Chuck Howard,
Yes.
Don Reimer.
Yes.
Ursula Kuzbudi. Kent Slaymaker.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion carries, congratulations. Okay, we're done with the public hearing. If anybody wants to stay, we're gonna go finish up our agenda with the staff update. If anybody wants to stay and listen, we have staff update.
Yeah, I didn't give you a written copy. I do have a couple things I wanted to mention. First and foremost, on the FTP for the Gem Motel, I will include those comments in the city council staff report. Make sure that they're adequately covered, and there could be another condition of approval at that meeting, so.
Yep.
We'll make sure that we give it adequate coverage at that meeting.
Okay.
On other projects right now, I do want to introduce Maria. She's our new best and brightest intern, and she's sitting over in the corner over there. She's been with the city about 2 weeks now, and she's just starting to get, introduced around the city and up to speed. She's got a couple of projects she's working on. One thing she's really interested in is historic preservation, so we're probably going to get her involved with HBRC here in the near future.
Welcome, thank you.
We have a couple of busy months ahead of us, I think, in the city. We've hired a planner. His name is Dylan, and he actually is an Idaho Springs resident. And he will be starting right after Thanksgiving. So I think that that's going to be a really great thing for staff. I think the general plan, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, is I would stay involved somewhat and help kind of oversee what he's doing in community development, but he would be handling the day-to-day operations and planning department. I think it's something that's going to really help us out, just making sure we have enough capacity to handle all the projects that are happening in the city. So we're really excited about that. We have talked several times, I want to give you guys a chance to talk about this a little bit, just so we have good direction, Nick and I, about what to present to you. About several ordinances at this point that we would like to bring forward again to have considered. You may remember, we talked about animal regulations, we've talked about food truck regulations, we've talked about hotel motel regulations. And I think that especially the hotel motel regulations may need another work session to really talk it through. I'm not sure that everyone on planning commission really feels like we've addressed what we need to address with our conversation last time. So I would like to bring that back to you in a work session in December, just to discuss it one more time and make sure we're on point with what needs to happen. Especially when it comes to that dormitory style housing question. And if you remember, we have it for short-term stays and kind of long-term stays. So we had our conversation. I think we might just want to readdress that a little bit. Also, planning or city council has recently been talking about our fee in lieu ordinance, and they would like to know, or what they'd like to have planning commission reconsider basically the fee structure portion of the fee in lieu ordinance to maybe better align with the practicalities of how businesses work in downtown. And so I'd like to bring a conversation to planning commission to just look at that a little bit. I've also discovered a couple of things that we may have wanted to talk about the fee in lieu ordinance, just now that we've had a couple applications come through. There will be another one for your consideration in December. So in December, we could potentially have this work session to talk about those ordinances and maybe a regular meeting to talk about this fee in lieu. There's also, right now, we've had 4 annexation requests that have recently come to the city. I don't think any of them are gonna meet a deadline to make it to a December meeting, but they likely will be in January, at least 2 of them.
Annexation?
So, annexations, yeah.
From,
So there would be one down 103 near the cemetery, and then one up near Santa Fe Mine Road. Those are the 2 most far along. And then we do have a couple other ones that may come. There's also several variance requests that we've had in the pipeline, which is not your purview, but just to be aware, there's quite a bit of development interest in the city. We've also been working on a subdivision improvement agreement in the city as well. So that's something, while that's not something that's considered by planning commission, there may be planning and zoning issues that we need to discuss related. So right now we have had a lot of interest. One other thing I just wanted to mention is our comprehensive plan that you guys worked on is from 2017. It's probably time for an update of that. And so it's crazy how fast it's
Jeez, seems like we just did it.
Yeah, I was just,
Good thing Dylan's coming up.
oh yeah, for sure. I just reviewed it too, and we've actually accomplished many of the goals in there, so it's really good, it's a good time to look at it. We did put up money in the budget for next year, we'll probably have to do this in phases because they get expensive, but I just wanted to kind of put that in front of you. The last thing I want to tell you is we've been working on this innovative housing opportunity planning program. We got a grant from the state with the county to work on how we can better promote affordable housing within our community and workforce housing. We've been working with a consultant for about a year now, and we just finished one part of the project, which is it's the beginning of our community engagement campaign. The program that we have built is called A Clear Path Home, because we like trails in Clear County, and we want to make sure everybody has a way to get into a home here. And we just have started a new campaign called I Say Yes. And what the I Say Yes campaign is about is kind of flipping the narrative about affordable housing on its head a little bit, not necessarily focusing on the things we don't like about affordable housing, but focusing on the things we want for our community. And then hopefully what the goal of that will be is that we can build actionable policy that does that. So if my goal is I want to be able to work where I live, then we need to work on workforce housing. So what we're hoping to do is get really good engagement throughout the community using this I Say Yes campaign to really focus on giving planning commission tools that you can say, this is what our community is looking for, so that if we start modifying our municipal code to let affordable housing happen or workforce housing in different places in different ways, you have some basis for what the community wants to. We will be talking to City Council on November 27th about that campaign, and ultimately they're going to be coming to you as well. They're needing to make some recommendations to the city based on the grant out of 1271, which is a House bill that this originated from. And we need to adopt one strategy that makes affordable housing happen. We can do more, we have to do one. And one of them is creating a multi-jurisdictional housing authority. I think I've talked to you guys a little bit about this before, but that would be a board that's built throughout the entire county, each of the municipalities and the county. And we work together to get funding for housing and potentially do other things just to make housing happen more effectively, because it can, a housing authority like that can work more effectively in a public-private dynamic or different ways to kind of make sure that we get the housing we need for the people who live here. So eventually they're going to be coming to planning commission. I would anticipate that in March probably February or March. And then we'll have this plan that we need to adopt eventually based on what we have our conversation with them and then this whole bit of it. And I think that's probably on tap for June. So I think the first half of next year is gonna be pretty busy. So hopefully it all goes really well.
Crazy.
Yeah, but we do have a little bit more capacity with Maria. She's been doing great and she's already kind of picked up some of the reins, and we'll have Dylan starting right after October, and that'll help too. So our intention is to keep these things moving as quickly, not as quickly as possible, but reasonably, and hopefully have fun doing it. So I don't know if you guys have any questions about me or for me, what we're doing, or.
I think on the ordinances that we've been working on with the food truck and everything, I think we should just wait till Dylan's on
Okay,
and do the work sessions like you said in December. And if it's gotta go till January, I mean, it's not gonna hurt.
okay,
I mean, the time of year, it was the food truck, the housing, and what was the other?
Animals.
Animals.
I
yeah.
drafted two that I know are good to go. One was the food truck.
Yeah.
And the other was zoning change for the boutique hotels. Those two are drafted, but we could look at them again along with the.
I think the only one you might have been concerned about was the,
dormitory.
no, that one to me, I'd rather see us get Dylan on board because he might have some valuable input coming from Summit County and working here, which would be good for us to use. No, the other one,
The fee and loop.
no,
Food trucks or animal regulation?
no, the one where they don't have to have a person on site for.
Oh, the smart
Those,
The
that's
smart
one of the,
hotel.
that's one of the ones that I have drafted already.
Right, if that to me is the only one I could see where if it needed to be done because of the opportunity of the person trying to do this, or do we have time until after Dylan gets on board?
Based on our council direction, I'd really like to bring that fee and lieu conversation to you in December. The
Okay.
other ones, I
And
think,
the others, wait,
we could potentially, wait till January. We will have potentially 2 annexation hearings in January, so, and those can be a little bit longer. They require more review and everything, so that could make it for a long meeting, but we could also do it in February too, so.
no, the fee and lieu, if you think that's the highest breaker, to do that
Okay.
one first, okay?
Couple questions, would it be possible for us to see a draft of what you have prepared so far, or do we have to wait for whenever the meeting is?
I think you could have it in the work session. I mean, but
Could we be
I
online?
also think that you guys could do a work session on the fee and lieu animals and then have a regular meeting for the ordinances we already have. And if you want to move to recommend approval on those ordinances, then done deal. We don't have to come back and look at them again for another meeting.
Which ordinance is on,
The food truck and the boutique smart hotel zoning change.
the boutique motel or the smart?
It's like the same.
Okay.
I'm conflating the two,
Okay.
but like the unmanned small
unmanned.
hotels, yeah,
Smart,
yeah. But you could have those in front of you for actual action items for a real meeting, and then we could do a study session before. And like, do you have a problem with
Do
that?
you thi-
I would like that. I think we could give, because Dylan may be able to be here for that meeting anyway, so he could kind of get the work session.
the
and then-
smart and the animal.
Yeah, and then
and
he
the
could bring
in
that
lieu out of the
ordinance
way.
back.
Just to, like, get those off our plate and they don't have to come back in the future.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, I think the dormitory one and all of that is a much longer discussion.
Yeah.
So,
Does that include the long-term stay? at the
Yeah.
hotel motel?
Yeah.
Or is that,
The ordinance that I have does not, that was just strictly permitting that use in the zoning code.
well, what's the status of that? Did that end up getting?
We haven't
resolved, or is-
looked at it, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Well, the
is that
smart
part
hotel
of
thing,
everything we're talking about?
yeah, he's got the ordinance for the unmanned hotel thing all done, because that was just like a language change code.
Right.
What we have to do is we need to tackle this whole hotel regulation issue, and I'm calling it, I'm not saying necessarily we're putting a regulation scheme, but that's kind of where this conversation has gone. I think we need to be really clear about what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And the dormitory style housing,
extended stay,
Yeah.
dormitory, all of
yeah,
it.
that, that is a really complicated piece, and I'm not 100% sure we captured. I'm not sure that the conversation we had really captured what anybody was saying, and that's why I was saying, I'd really like to bring that back for a work session and make sure we have it really clear what we're trying to accomplish. Just so the policy, when Nick crafts that ordinance, that it's written the right way, and we're not overstepping, but we're also stepping appropriately to make sure that we have quality, safe units and all that kind of stuff.
Right, and thanks for mentioning that. It sounds like if there's some easy, quick ones, those are great to address. Yeah, but I just want to make sure that, those are all about future projects that may benefit businesses.
Yeah.
And we have current people living that are having real issues. So it's very complicated. Why I'm excited to hear about that. We're going to be talking about it soon. So it'll be a long conversation. I'm
Right.
sure.
And that's why we wanted to wait till Dylan got on staff to bring him in, since he'll be
There's
the
a
city
balance
planner.
between waiting until and trying to get a move on and waiting.
He started
over
in
a
about
year.
28 days.
Well, and that's
Right.
great. I hope we can get to it. We had a city planner the entire time that it was delayed for about over a year. We had a city planner the whole time. So I hope that when he's in, we're able to get to it.
Okay, more staff update?
Nope, that's it for this time, unless you have any questions.
I do have, I have another question. We have talked for, I feel like, probably over a year now about, doing something about ADUs in relation to housing and affordable housing and figuring that out. Would that be something that gets addressed with this multi-jurisdiction housing, and does
Yes.
that mean that nothing is gonna happen until June?
No, well, that's probably your timeline no matter what. By the time you have a work session and you have an ordinance come to you, and then it's gotta come first and second to council, it's gonna be significantly into next year at this point. If we do allow ADUs in war zone districts, or we do something with ADUs or density or anything like that, it does count to the IHOP, and it would be beneficial to the city and to the county to use that as one of the qualifying strategies for that grant. And so I think that I have had my conversation with the planning consultants, but you guys need to have your conversation too, and we need to get Dylan up to speed. I personally believe that I could make a recommendation that there could be more ADUs in the city. But one thing you'll want to consider is irregular lots, because we do have some lots where they're just not gonna be appropriate. So we do want to make sure that we cover that, just to make sure they're safe, is basically it. Not thinking about setbacks or anything like that, but just safe uses. So I think that ordinance, they've already begun looking at some of the samples of what we could write for that, and they would provide that to Nick after you had an opportunity to weigh in. And that is on the schedule for, as soon as we can get them before you, we're gonna do that. And then there's other qualifying strategies too, like we can look at how we do taps, we can look at density bonuses, we can look at all of the whole thing, the whole menu of affordable housing stuff. So there's quite a few options, and I think what we wanted to avoid was them just telling us, oh, you should do all these things that other people do. So you'll have like a menu of options that you can choose from that you think are most fitting for the city. And then the other thing we're really trying to do is we're trying to align our codes with Silver Bloom, Empire, Georgetown, and the county. Not necessarily exactly the same, but where like you can reasonably expect a certain kind of code process when you go to any municipality, because we know that housing in Georgetown really helps us too, and housing in the county helps us too. So we're just trying to make sure that when somebody comes to our region, they're able to build somewhere if that's what they want to do. If there's, for instance, if there's a lot in Dumont, maybe they want to build something there, but they could generally know what they have to do that and have consistent rules and process.
Yeah, I know of a couple.
Go ahead.
Of a couple residents have been asking me about that, what's happening, because they're very interested about the ADU situation, so.
And we can also look at, there's been some questions about tiny homes that I have received as well, and I know you guys had a really robust conversation about tiny homes several years ago, but that's another thing you guys could discuss as well. We've also had some conversations about mobile homes and things like that, and I think that there's some, and Wonder's been actually really at the forefront of this mobile home conversation, because she has to deal with all these projects. So there may be some opportunities to look at what we do for mobile homes too, and just thinking about how they work for housing in our community.
Okay.
Hey, I got a couple of questions. And they're simple to answer. I'm curious about the Club Hotel. Where we're at, what it's going to be, and also the, excuse me, the other 10 units over on the other side of Colorado.
The gem or the,
No,
Habitat?
oh, Habitat, okay.
no.
Oh, Gold Rush, okay,
Gold Rush.
gotcha. So Lodgemont, or the Club Hotel is getting very close. They haven't got their certificate yet.
No.
Yeah, no, oh, that's right. They have one more project to do to get their certificate of occupancy. But they're pretty much in punch list on construction. Andy Wonder and I toured the property about a week and a half ago, and they are not quite there yet, but they're close. Oh, Patty, I'm sorry. I'm really somebody. But they're getting close. So they have to finish, dotting the i's, crossing the t's. And it'll be open before the end of the year. I'm pretty sure of it. It's gonna be like a hotel, like a upscale kind of hotel kind of experience. And then they have a meeting room kind of in the old restaurant space in the back of the restaurant or the back of the hotel. That'll be like a meeting room for like weddings and events and things like that. So that's what they're planning right now. They've got some landscaping to do on the front side. They're gonna install a small wrought iron fence around their yard, like historically was there. And I think that's pretty much it. So I think we should be anticipating them opening maybe by the end of the year. They've already got parking figured out, all that kind of stuff. So not a problem for them. On the other side of the street, that is a new housing development. And I want to say there's 10 units, but there might be 8. 10, we're talking about Gold Rush, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they're very close to certificate of occupancy as well. Their process, their FTP process is a little bit different review, but they are intending that to be workforce housing. It's not affordable housing. It's not deed restricted or anything, but it's intended for workforce people here. I think the units are supposed to be pretty nice. We're supposed to have a tour of it when they're ready, but they haven't quite got there yet. But I do think they've been working really hard to match it to the rest of the Gold Rush Center and make sure there's enough parking. We had some questions about backing onto Colorado Boulevard with that project, and they've largely addressed all of them. I don't think we should have a huge safety concern with the traffic associated with it. But I think that their plan is to try to be open by the end of the year as well.
Cindy, can I ask a question is, are those slated to be rentals or people are buying them? Are they renting them?
Rentals.
Rental, okay.
All right, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting on November 1st. Do you need the time? 7:31.